What's up? How's it going, everybody?
Good to see you guys. We just met Chris for a couple minutes ago. Having a good time on this call already. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So welcome to the Friday edition of Let's Talk Data Engineering. We have a special guest, Chris Tabb. So if people who don't know you already, want to give a quick intro, quick shout out?
Yeah, thank you. Special guest. So rather than gatecrasher like it was 2 weeks ago. So,
that's pretty awesome last time.
It's good to be actually invited. It's always better to be invited to something. So yeah, it's quite an interesting topic. We had a good chat a couple of weeks ago about it, but this week a few things have happened which is made it very relevant for me. So I'm happy to be in here and talking about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and for the audience, for some context, Chris was asking some great questions in the audience a couple of weeks ago, and liked him so much we just decided to spontaneously invite him on about 3/4 of the way through, and liked him so much we invited him back. So
it was basically Clubhouse, right? I mean, that's what happened.
It's like Clubhouse.
Yeah.
So and of course we got Matt Housley.
Good to see everyone.
At Ternary Data.
You can see me anyway.
So awesome. Yeah, so we're going to do like a live Q&A. So for listeners out there, feel free to drop questions, comments in the comment box, and we'll get to those. But I guess, we can probably talk about some topics here. I don't know, where do you want to start, Chris? What's going on in your mind this week?
Well, so yeah, my little post I did just pre this session was, WTF, what's a data engineer? And I thought that was a good intro into this. What's made it much relevant, or more relevant for me this week, is we hired a graduate this week. I don't know if he's listening, but Jack, welcome on board. So our first graduate engineer, we've been focusing on getting people in we know, tried and tested, but we realised we'd need to bring the average age of the team down. So we thought we'd go straight in there and get ourselves a grad. So he's already making an impact on the average age, but yeah, it's just a fresh perspective and a new, his enthusiasm's great. So trying to create a path for him at the moment to like navigate him through that journey to be that unicorn of a data engineer that we saw Greg a few weeks ago post that every single skill you need to be a data engineer. So I think that was. Oh, and the other thing I've done this week, we've hired 2 other people, so I've been doing a lot of interviewing as well and looking at a lot of CVs. So that's given me a view of what I believe is a unicorn at the moment, and why they're going to be harder to come by, and why I see it fragmenting now, that the data engineering to having different focuses. There was another blog or post I was contributing to that I think I named you on, Joe, as well, which is there was a vote of what should a data engineer focus on? Was it the analytics part? Was it the operational part? And I mean, everyone I think the surveys come in now. It's everything was needed by one, but I think my response was, it's going to fragment. You're going to start to have people specializing on different parts of it. And I think what I've found with building this team up at the moment is you're never going to find everyone that has all of these things now. And the older generation, myself, we can do the dimensional modeling. We know the Kimball. We know how to do the ETL. We know the data quality. We know all the. But the newer skills, being able to work your way around different Python libraries, the different configuration on AWS, Docker container, Kubernetes. I'm too old to go back and learn all of that stuff now, and don't seem to find the time. But getting in a team, I think I use the term pie-shaped. So you can't just be broad across and depth in one area. You need to have depth in a couple of areas. And if you have a team of 4 or 5 really good people that have that breadth, and each of them have got a couple of areas that they specialize in, you've got a high performing data engineering team that between them, they can do an end-to-end pipeline and be quick with it as well. And also collaborate with each other, learn off each other. If one's not as strong in one area, you upskill it. Looking for our teams at the moment, we're looking to find that balance, because there's not one person in our team that knows it all. And I don't think we're ever going to find a person that has everything we need and can do the whole lot.
Well, too bad you can't find unicorns like that. I mean, geez. So, yeah, we bring up this. Matt, what are your thoughts on this? I'm going to bring up this slide again so people can see it. It was pretty bananas in the best possible way, of course.
Well, I think this is actually a characteristic of the data engineering profession. So I think there was a time when you could study Java in school and be a Java dev. And, you're going to learn lots of stuff about Java libraries. You're going to expand your knowledge base and skill set over time. You're going to get better at Java. But you might be able to spend a lot of your career just working on Java backends and just continuing to get really deep on Java. And one of the characteristics of modern data engineers is that they have to be very self-motivated to constantly be learning new technologies. They need to be good at self-study. They actually should be good teachers, because at every team I've been on where you're onboarding people, they're really smart. They bring a lot of skills, but just like you were saying, you have to teach them a lot of new skills, and they need to teach you a lot of new skills. It's just a very interesting domain. One of the things we're writing about the book is that software engineering is still a core undercurrent of modern data engineering, but it's much broader. It's not like you're just going to be working on the Hadoop stack for 10 years. You'll probably be doing some Spark, you're doing Airflow, you might be adopting new orchestration frameworks. You've got to be very good about keeping an eye on the ecosystem of new technologies, but not getting distracted, right? It's this balancing act. I need to identify the stuff that's important without chasing every new thing that comes out. So it's the unicorn part is more about your ability to learn and stay on top of things and balance all these different considerations as opposed to know it all. Because if you know it all today, you won't next year. The field just changes way too fast.
And I think another thing that's lacking is we're doing this for a reason. The businesses operate to make a product, to sell money, to sell it to make money. So it's not all about using, as you said, using the greatest technology for this piece. You got to realize that you got to deliver an end product at the moment that's going to add value. So arguing about whether we should use this orchestration tool or another orchestration tool, you need to look at the bigger picture. It's going to cost you 2 sprints or 4 sprints to go and rip it out, which means you're going to miss a date. You need to think, okay, pragmatism sometimes, which I do find that if you've just been in that development environment, it's hard for you to understand that you need a compromise sometimes. Sometimes the best choice isn't the best choice.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I think there was a tendency in the last maybe 5 years, everyone wanted to jump on the Spark bandwagon. It's like, Spark is awesome, but is that really what you need? Or do you more just need, core SQL-based data processing on a data warehouse? Because SQL is going to be way easier if you can use that and then add Spark later as it's necessary. Going back to what you were saying, Chris, there are these comments about Kimball, which I completely agree with. It says LinkedIn user, so I'm not sure who's commenting here, but really good comment about the need for just these core data skills. The thing I'll say about Kimball, the problem I've seen with Kimball is that we have to start relaxing it a bit. So on the one hand, you had the Google camp that was denormalize everything. Well, that doesn't really work. But I think rigid Kimball doesn't work in 2021 either. You need to be somewhere in the middle. Yep. So you need Kimball practitioners who can also make adjustments and not be totally glued to that methodology.
Pragmatism. It's back to that thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's why I still like going back to Kimball is, we think in hierarchies. We think in measures and actually it's all. If you can get that, you can make a big table out of all of it anytime. Yeah. But you can't go and make sensible data out of a big table if that's the only structure you've got. So
exactly.
I think the other thing I just came to mind there is about if a hammer's the only tool you've got in your toolbox, a nail's a problem every time. So if you only know Spark, it might not, you might be able to do it, but is it the right tool for the right job? Yeah. So having that, not being too precious over it sometimes. Someone arguing over, I'm going to do an SQL, I'm going to do a Spark. Look to see. Okay, well, actually, it is better that one. But it's technology's easy. People are hard.
They really are. I mean, to your Spark comments, I've seen data engineering teams spend a ton of time just trying to figure out how to flatten out data in Spark. It's turns out if you're good at modern SQL, that's not very hard in SQL. So do the easy stuff in SQL, and then the really hard data frame computations, do that stuff in Spark for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't use your Ferrari to tow your caravan, do you?
Speak for yourself. So.
Well, we're not lucky to have a Ferraris, Joe.
Right. Your Porsche you can use to tow your car.
Yeah, it is interesting though. The organizational stuff I think is very underrated as well, right? So time and time again it comes up, but it's been the same thing in technology for a long time. I just think it's easy to fascinate on tools and then I guess act like a tool as a result. So, what's up, Raymond? How's it going, man? Avery, shout out, Avery Smith, and everyone else here. Robert. Our team's only objectives are to learn and to teach. We can only succeed if we are learning. I really like this a lot. I know for Matt and I, and I'd love your opinion on this, Chris. We really center on, I think, ability to continuously learn. Like, to me, that is like the number one skill. I wouldn't say it's more of a characteristic. It's not really a skill. You either kind of like have this or you might not have it. But if you don't have the ability to continuously learn, I think it's really difficult to have a career in technology or data, at least one that's going to be long-lived or exciting. Maybe I'm wrong on that though, because there's probably people that have been like, with 30 years of experience with like 1 year times 30, right? So there's that, but.
Yeah, like I said, Java and C have that reputation to some extent. I think it's declining somewhat.
No beers right now. So.
Yeah. Next time, let's do that. Okay, let's make
not yet. We got kombucha. Yeah. Anyway, back on point. What were you saying, Matt?
Oh, just, I mean, like I was saying earlier, I think there are some Java careers that are kind of like this. And C sort of had that reputation too, where you would just learn C back in the day. You program C for 20 years or something like this. So, yeah. Does not work so well now. I think the other thing I'll say about continuous learning is that academics like me have a reputation for maybe very pedantic continuous learning. And so it's like the combination of continuous learning plus pragmatism.
Yeah.
Exactly as you were saying. Yeah.
What do you mean by pedantic learning? Like kind of like continuous navel gazing, or like what do you?
In some sense, like you're constantly like learning and studying new things, but you're not maybe deploying them toward practical solutions that a business would need. Like
but you've gotten really good at it. I mean, I think of a lot of people I know. You're probably one of the more practical people. So I don't know what flips a switch flipped in your head or something, but
something went terribly wrong in my life.
Yeah. What are you seeing out there, Chris?
So I think when I don't fully understand something and I want to get that eureka moment, I'm not good at going through the books and reading through it. I have to play around with it. If I don't have the opportunity to play around myself, I'll find someone that I know quite well that either owes me a favor or I've helped know something. We'll have a chat and they'll help me. They'll help me understand it enough to be comfortable that I don't have to know it in detail. For example, I don't have to know, the latest Python libraries or something, but just to know what's out there or what's being used is for me nowadays is sufficient. So, but continuously learning. I'm learning how to do LinkedIn more than I ever used to. I'm learning about other things that probably aren't quite as interesting as data engineering nowadays. But the other thing I was thinking earlier was we talked about sharing knowledge and helping people learn themselves and it all starts at a community. And if you have that community, and I was talking to someone recently and they said, we need to set up this governance council. No. What you need is a community that looks after this stuff, which governance will be an aspect of it. But if you call it that, no one's going to turn up for one. It's going to sound a little bit too regimented. But when a company's maturing on that data journey, data engineering being part of that, you want those data engineers to understand why they're doing it. Why is my product owner keep telling me that I need to swap from this to something else? And why is that feature that's going to take us much more time than this is the priority, because I've nearly finished that one. And having that, I'm sure they could get that feedback from the direct reports, but having that community thing where the managers are there, or anyone that has an interest in something, and you are able to do that show and tell at an organization level, not just at a tech level, because it's seeing it in life. Seeing a new dashboard that's being used by a sales team now that this is now saved them. I used to have to wait hours for this data, or I had to like phone up this guy to do me an extract, and then they used to do this for us, and it wasn't accurate. You know, you've made their life better, but the more people you can communicate that to in the organization, the more they're going to want to get involved, the more that they may compromise on a particular decision or particular tooling. So I think you start moving faster on that maturity scale if you have that in place and it's used in that way.
I like that a lot. What are your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that springs to mind here, I think Joe and I found over time, and as we're writing this book, that a lot of the old school enterprisey stuff is actually very important, right? But like you were saying, Chris, getting rid of some of the terminology like governance, like all the very authoritarian top-down notions that are part of the enterprise tradition is very helpful. And so maybe like teaching a new generation of data engineers, like we care a lot about data management, but maybe we need to think about it in a different way, not in terms of like these top-down committees that are going to make all your decisions, but make it more of a distributed responsibility and accountability in something like this instead.
My buddy Scott Taylor, I mean, he's a data management guru, and he's always fond of saying, like, when you want to do a data quality initiative, don't use the words data quality to stakeholders. You're going to bore them to tears and skin them. Don't use data governance. Talk about the outputs and the outcomes. What are you going to get out of it? Clean data, great data, that kind of stuff. And I'm sure he'll have a lot to say on that, but totally resonates. When you're trying to sell something internally, communicate it. You bring up a good point. Both of you, it's kind of like these terms, like these old school terms, governance and stuff. They're scary to a lot of people, especially I would say younger people who aren't so rigid in their upbringing. So. Maybe new terms about new approaches are also, but the thing is that these practices are coming back in vogue, but they've always been in vogue, I think, at a certain layer of company, but they're starting to become in vogue at smaller companies as well. So maybe it's different terminology, I'm not sure, but communication is key, as you point out. You got to communicate wins across the company, otherwise it's hard to get traction, and that's key. Visibility is key. I made that mistake in my career a couple of times, where I was burned a couple of times on projects and kept things quiet, because I didn't want nosy project managers getting in the mix and screwing things up even further. So, and that came back to bite me. Because I made the mistake of being seen as a silo, right? And so it was hard to get support. And I think I had my own reasons, but at the same time, I learned that communication, is key. You gotta do it correctly and productively. So.
Yeah, I was thinking when you're saying about data quality, I think high performing data, and maybe that's a better way of selling it, is rather than calling it data quality. I'm making your data high performing, not cleaning it. I'm making it high performing. I think there's a Suzanne Walsh will probably have a view on that one. Maybe she does a lot of stuff on data quality. And I think the other note I just made, as you're saying there, was working with data governance that are doing the security part of it as well, letting them know it's very easy to write a policy. It's a couple of paragraphs. So here you go, implement this. It's not quite as easy as that. Okay, how estimate that? If it's ambiguous, if it's unimplementable, it's not worth writing. So that community thing, understanding. Okay, yeah, I know I have to do the security thing. I know I have to do that, but I've got to build this thing over here. And what level is enough of security? So when is it becoming? You've got locks on locks on locks. Yeah, it's going back to pragmatic, doing a risk-based assessment of, okay, how likely is this thing going to happen? Okay, right. Let's make an appropriate approach based on that risk.
Yeah, and I think even security is a great example of where you sometimes see top-down thinking, and if you can see more distributed thinking, it will actually be more agile and you'll be more secure both. I think what we sometimes see is that companies adopted a security handbook a long time ago. They gradually update, but really it's way behind. Like really the security postures are based in thinking from the late 90s or early 2000s. And if the security team will go talk to the engineers, DevOps people, they understand security extremely well. They just need to open the channel of communication and say, okay, how do you think we do this securely? How do we implement that? And then that will become our policy instead of just having someone at the top declare this is what's going to happen and then pass it down. And it's like, oh, well, this really isn't making us very secure. It's just very annoying.
Chuck it over the fence. Not my problem anymore.
Yeah,
doesn't
exactly.
really
I mean, look at the big ransomware attacks that have happened recently too. Those have been mainly just compromised emails. So people just clicking on bad links and stuff. So like no amount of security posturing is going to help if like your weakest link is somebody clicking on a, on a bad email, right? That can suddenly bring down your like oil pipeline or whatever. So
yeah.
So it has to be institutionalized.
I haven't done that recently. I'm okay. So
to stay away from oil pipelines, I guess.
Got a question here from Andrew here. Let me bring this up here. Andrew Mason, he also known as LinkedIn user. What's up, Andrew? What key skills would you look for in your first data engineer hire? Open the floor to you guys. Have at it.
Well, I'm not going to send the job spec that we sent out for it, but I think the first thing is for me it was an interest or passion in data. that was the number one ingredient, and the second one was for them to be able to articulate a project or something they've done, but explain why they've done it, how they've done it, what data sets they used, and what the outcome was. The toolings, the technology part, whether you've written in Python or done the calculation in R, or whether you've done it in SQL Server or in Oracle, or that was irrelevant at that point. But so that was the core ingredients that we're doing, and also getting on with our team as well. So me and my partners, we're a bit Marmite sometimes. So you like it or you don't. So we need to find people that are going to fit in and have the right sort of way of working, communication skills, style. I think that's another key thing. Is we're more of a family than a company sort of thing. So it's we've got to have a joke, got to have a laugh, especially with me around.
Yeah, Mark has a good comment here. Sorry, I totally agree. Cowboy data engineers live in a bit of lack of discipline on initial setup. I tend to agree with that quite a bit. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, what you were saying, Matt?
Oh, just yeah. I mean, it's hard to know. Like you were saying, Chris, I think there's something about data intuition somehow. And when I see software developers transitioning from doing software to really doing like more analytics data engineering, that's like one of the big barriers, right? It's not any particular language. It's not any particular skill that hampers them at first. It's just like that intuition for working with large data sets as opposed to like working with a few events at a time or something like this. Yeah. And then once they get it, it opens the doors to all kinds of different data engineering technologies. And yeah, I agree. I was going to say what Mark was saying here exactly. SQL and Python, I consider kind of just good general purpose skills for any data engineer to have. I don't necessarily care about the particular dialect of SQL, and I don't even care that much about what Python libraries you know. As long as you have some experience in the language, you can pick things up. And then, yeah, other skills, I want them to explain what they're able to do, what their capabilities are, and how they would be willing to learn my particular tech stack, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would echo all those things. I would say, again, just continuous learning ability is key. It's hard to gauge that though, right? And hiring is such a crapshoot anyway. Like in a lot of ways, it's a coin flip because there's a lot of things that can go wrong even after you make the hire. So I think you got to like focus on, like you say, communication. Is this person trustworthy? They have good characteristics. Like, are they smart? Have integrity and character, as Warren Buffett would say for a hire. And if they lack the first two, or if they lack the integrity and the character, being smart doesn't matter. It actually makes them really dangerous. So, Yeah. So, those are the kinds of things I focus on. I mean, tech skills, I think are obviously it's table stakes, but that could be evaluated. I tend to walk people through, it's just sort of just conversations, really, just kind of get a gauge of the person. And it's just, are they able to have like, I guess, exhibit empathy, for example, and that kind of thing. And just ask them, how do you solve problems? I think that's how I tend to do interviews. I tend not to do that many technical dives. I figure, that should be table stakes. I have other ways of evaluating that, but the things I really do look for are like I said, the non-teachable things, because that's where I've seen most hires go right or wrong. Just personality issues with the team or with themselves. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I think another thing is making sure someone coming new into it, make sure they know exactly what a data engineer does. So that's something we've found as well, is that it's not all about the pretty graphs at the end or making a little app or something like that. There's There's a whole lot of stuff that's got to go on that data's journey to get it into that point. And we found that some that when talking through is, do you really want to be a data engineer, or do you want to develop like apps or something like that? And I think when they sat down and thought about it, they realised that data engineering isn't it. We're the unsung heroes of every app and application and system out there, because behind the scene is where the magic happens. Really, it's any pretty nice front end, if it doesn't perform well, it doesn't keep the data well, it won't be a success. So, but other way around. Great back end and great data model. You put a load of rubbish on top, that's also useless as well.
Yeah, good point, Robert. Here, coincidence. If you ain't asking a lot of questions, you're probably not going to get a great engineer. You can never take that for sure. Totally agree. Raymond asked a question here. What if only SQL is still trustable to hire?
I think so. Yeah. If there's that willingness to learn. Data has relationships. Data has hierarchy. We went back to this earlier. If you can understand that, and you've got a good understanding of data models, the rest of it is a data frame in Python. Okay, you connect that. You're doing something with it. Okay, the willingness to learn or move outside of that area, that's a solid foundational skill. There's many good courses out there. I'm sure you've got one, Joe, that you could recommend.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, and a lot of friends make courses. So I'm just going to say, go to all my friends' courses, including the one that Matt and I teach at the university. So, yeah. What are you going to say, Matt?
I was just going to, it depends on what tier, where they are, where I'm hiring them. So I think for a junior data engineer, if they have the willingness to learn software development, they're coming in with just SQL and like really strong data skills is good. If it's a more senior person, then I would expect some more general purpose programming language. So say they're really good at Java or Scala, then I assume that they're going to have no trouble picking up Python. The nice thing about Python is that you can already immediately do so many things just right off the bat. At the same time, realistically, to your point, Chris, like some people just don't have it, right? They're really, really good software engineers, but they just haven't touched Python as it turns out. And you can bring them as a mid-level or senior person. They're just going to pick it right up, whatever they need to learn. So, yeah.
Keaton, what's up, Keaton? Always ask good questions. You said to hire a candidate, he should have a passion for an interest for data. Question: how do you judge him, and I guess her, that he or she really loves data or data engineering? What are your thoughts on this?
I think, if they're able to, if we've come along with a test case, or they're talking for an example they've done, you can sort of sense it in how they talked about it, or how they were so happy when someone got what they wanted, or if I ask someone a story about what they've done, if they just talked about, I used this library, I did that, then I did this, I converted it, did it over there, and then they got their report. No, I saved the end user like 3 hours. He was able to do this now, and he wasn't before. I've reduced the asset, whatever it was that. And if they explain it and they've got enthusiasm in it, now don't use that anyone out there and pretend you're good actors. It's just like now you normally do say it monotone, and you're just gonna now pretend you're happy with it. We'll see through that, honestly. So so don't try that one. I think one other thought before maybe another question was we talked about data engineer and senior data engineer. So there's a path to more things, and we talked about the governance thing, but there's data architecture is and I say that because it was a long time ago I was a data engineer. I've been in the architecture space, and I have gone back and got nosebleeds going back to doing in Git, and I can do it, but I don't do it nowadays. But there's that path. If over time you've got some of those skills, and you want to think, okay, what's the next level for me? A lot of those things, those foundation skills, can be a great entry point into data architecture.
What is data architecture?
Oh, we got another. We have a separate session. It's going to be WTF. What is data architecture?
We need this talk.
Spoiler if we go through it, if we start talking about it now. I'd happily come back and talk about data architecture, but I'd have to put a different hat on again now. So we
might have you back on to talk about this. Next show, because I think it's one of those things. Matt and I we've been we were defining it, and we're like, holy crap! Okay, so there's this, and above it more stuff. Architecture is one of those very squishy terms that I think everyone has a title architecture or architect. Defining architecture, it's tricky.
I have a friend I refer to. He's a real architect, and he actually builds houses and for very large houses for people. I'm a fake architect of designing systems and applications things. But definitely another whole subject. We should wait for Brett to do one of his posts that has 400 things a data architect needs to do, and we can start to work through that and whittle through it maybe and find out what really is needed. Deal.
Here's an easier question, and thanks, Keaton, for the question here. How much of data engineering is low-code solutions and hard-coding pipelines? This is going to be a fun talk here. Have at it.
Well, every time I see the word hard coding, I wince a little bit. So no hard coding in pipelines. It's literals, variables. That's it. Low code. Well, I'll Paul's give you a view on that one, maybe.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on this, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard other people say this, and I agree. There's no such thing as no code. So at least we're using the proper term of low code solutions here. It's really a question of how much flexibility you need. I think there are some really great graphical tools for designing data pipelines and such. I think we've seen this emergence of a new generation of code-based tools like Airflow precisely because people needed just a little more flexibility than you could get out of one of these off-the-shelf solutions. And so often this means in practice that you start out, you have a small team, you have a lot of other things to worry about. Use a code-free solution, and then eventually, if you need to go to something else, you can, or you can add another solution for particular use cases, something like that. The other thing I'll say about the pipelines as code, the really exciting thing about it is that we've actually dramatically improved the pipelines as code paradigm. What did pipelines as code used to be? Well, it used to be a bunch of horrible cron jobs, maybe written in Python or Bash or something awful. And the nice thing about the new generation of tools like Airflow is that if someone else is managing the environment, it's almost like it's quote unquote serverless. In other words, all your infrastructure and everything is taken care of, and then you can write fairly simple Python code to execute your pipelines using APIs. And I think this next generation of orchestration tools is even better in that respect, where you have the flexibility of code, but low operational burden as long as there's a team to kind of take care of the tool, and then you can focus on the data engineering.
Yeah, I tend to think it also depends on the team you're working on. So if they come from more of a graphical background, I would say tools like Matillion, even though they're low code and very powerful, it's still probably more appropriate than a team that's more kind of high code and would use maybe DBT to do similar transformations. So I think it really depends on the company that you're working with. I would say that said, the trend is towards, I guess, simpler tools, right? Regardless of the code or no code, low code, sorry, don't kill me. And that's and so what that means though is that the role of a data engineer is going to be changing, I think, higher up the value chain, like we were describing. Things are going to get more enterprisey because now that the pipelining piece is solved, now that transformations are much easier and analysts can do them with DBT, it's like, what do data engineers do? Well, they start making sure data is great, something that was kind of ignored, actually, frankly, and data is governed, something that was really ignored.
High-performing data. That's it.
Yeah. High-performing data, yes, sorry. High-performing data, data middle management, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it's. I think the role is going to be changing a lot. I also, foresee maybe software engineering and data engineering sort of blending into similar type of roles. This is a controversial opinion, but I and here's why. When you look at the sort of the data lifecycle, where does one begin and the other end? Right, it's basically from source system generation to ingesting it into the data engineering life cycle, so to speak, right? But I think, again, this distinction is going to become a bit more artificial as time goes on, as tools and practices become a lot simpler. So
Yeah, I think there's a few things that resonate there. So that orchestration back in the day of ETL tools and everything, you had to. It was all been in the tool. You know, you had your DAG in Informatica or Data Stage or Talent or whatever they were, or Spoon. I think in using Kettle or things like that. So having that airflow now is okay. Look, we have this thing that can coordinate, mix and match in a state where you now. You know, you can have that bit in DBT. You could have Matillion in some of it if one part of the organization, but having that orchestration capability and at a low cost as well, because the options before, you know, those sort of like scheduling orchestration tools were not cheap. And some of the, I'm not going to name names, obviously. We discussed this earlier, but you know, some large organisations that may have purchased some of these scheduling tools that may not have invested in them anymore. So, so that was something that came up. And the other one, I saw he was on the show a few weeks, Upsolver. So I think you had the guy from Upsolver.
Oh, Annie, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I love how they're adopting it, and I think that's that part of that middle ground piece. So you can go from that GUI generated code to just use the code that's from it, and you know, take it from there. Talon did something very similar when it used to have all the big data connectors for its map reduce. So having that flexibility approach is I think that's become more common. And the last comment I was going to say, which is to do with your the blurred lines. So ML ops or ML that's operation focused now. So yeah, we've gone through that life of data warehouse at the end of you know, your operational system, and then now we've got data science is giving us that insight. Now we're putting APIs on that end of it to make, you know, some maybe not immediate decisions, but yeah, getting some. Now that's going to come back round. That's part of your operational system. It's part of that the decision engine. So where is the lines now? Yeah, where is it like? Okay, that this is operational systems. All right, you own the data. There's our contracts. You get on with it.
Yeah,
I think I know the answer. It's basically a contract back now. You say, okay, right now here's your operation. Here, the operational guys. Here's your contract. They'll get to learn all the stress that we've had all the time when they never gave us the right requirements.
Anything to add there, Matt?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think what I'd add is that the tool space continues to evolve really, really rapidly, right? And so that's something that software engineers and data engineers really need to keep an eye on. And it does need to be more focused on the value that you're delivering as opposed to just the latest and greatest tool, whether it's a cloud data warehouse or some other big data system like this.
What does that mean? Like hipsters are going to go back to using like Informatica and Talent then just to...
Well, the hipsters have got, I mean, cloud data warehousing is sort of a resurgent version.
That's a good point,
data
actually.
Warehousing, right?
Yeah. It was kind of written off for dead back in the, I would say the early 2010s when everyone's like, oh, well, data lakes and Hadoop can obviously take care of it, right? So...
Yeah, Hadoop was going to solve all the world's data problems and do it very cheaply. So I hear.
Awesome.
Better go study pig, I guess.
I read the books. I didn't bother with it.
It wasn't my favorite experience. I mean, maybe I just didn't get deep enough with it. But you'd like get these random errors that was thrown on a node somewhere, and you could never track down what we were.
I mean, there's a lot of things it did give us. What the world we have now is you know, it gave us that you know, the recognition of that unstructured or semi-structured data is the way forward. You had to find solutions for these problems, which companies like Snowflake and BigQuery have solved now. So then I think now we need to look back. I think we spoke about this last week. You know, we need to take inspiration from what worked well back then. So a lot of things did work well. I mean, YAML. I said we did this last time. YAML was brilliant as a configuration capability for your Hadoop platform. So that's now used all over the place. You know, vendors now are using that as a standard configuration. It's in the heart of DBT. So that was good. We took that. we'll leave maybe Hive and Impala back there anyway.
Robert has a good question here. How much of the upfront analysis of design do you think is the engineer's job versus say I guess the business analyst or data analyst?
So I was going to send this through as one of the the backup questions we run out, which I hope.
Okay.
There was one exactly on this subject of the BA role or the data analyst role, and I'm going to go back to why that data engineering now has so many skills in it, and why the older generation, they're able to have more adapt or have more of those skills needed because they've been on that evolution. But when I started out, it was a 3-man BI team. We did the infrastructure, we did the requirements, we did the DBA. We didn't have any other options. There was no one else, and we were that BI team that was costing money, and and not part of critical business. So I think it's so important to understand the requirements of why you're doing it, and it not just be a ticket with a few lines in it, and someone's estimated for you, and you've got to go and deliver it. So as far as upfront analysis, what I like is at least the building blocks defined, and what we're trying to achieve with a high level view, and then after that drill into one piece of it during your sprint or but know where you're going at the beginning, because otherwise you're not going to succeed. But you don't want to go full waterfall. You don't want to have, okay, I've defined every single mapping for every single piece of this journey, and then you find out it's not actually what's needed. So the right time, the right amount at the right time. But that's a very consultant reply.
Yeah, I guess my response to this question would be to say that the way I see the modern data engineering role, it really exists as a service role to work with teams like data science, ML engineering, business analysts, and data analysts. And so ideally, it's not a waterfall process. It's not that a business analyst puts in a ticket and then the data engineer magically does all the work. It's that they're constantly collaborating with each other. And so like your business analysts and data analysts, as I like to say, know where the bodies are buried. In other words, they know where the really bad, low quality or poorly performing data exists. And they can pass that information back to the data engineers. They can write preliminary SQL queries to clean data. They can do a lot of the initial work, and then it's the data engineer's job to like make that really automated and smooth and something that you never think about, so the data analysts don't have to do it manually anymore. So yeah, I mean, to Robert's question, I would say that in a tiny organization, kind of like you experienced early on, Chris, these roles can overlap a lot, and then ideally over time they kind of diverge, but they remain very, very collaborative, and that's where data engineers can really deliver a lot of value.
Well, I think some of the design also should be done by an architect if you have one.
Yeah, that's true.
But we don't know what they do yet.
Well, they do something. So
that's next week. We put it in the wrong order.
So yeah, the made up architect title, but yeah, I think, but data engineers, though, I think should have a sense of good architecture, whatever that is. But you should have an understanding of architectural principles. Operational excellence, security, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So.
And I may upset some of my old colleagues out there, but enterprise architecture got architecture a bad name, because when it was the day of them coming in, right, we've just selected your products for your roadmap for you. Here you go and get on with it. And I've drawn it on a whiteboard over here. Here you go. See you later. I'm off to the next company. That hasn't really helped with getting architecture.
Do you think does that still happen a lot? Do you think?
It depends on the size of the company. I think enterprise architecture again needs a funkier name, like we just invented for data quality, because it is needed. Someone does need to find that roadmap. Is it your solution architect? Is it your data architect? Probably not. Is it your CTO in a company that's a good CTO? Probably. If you don't have a good CTO, or you don't have someone that's got that vision that's aligned to the business, then it's going to be a challenge. I just have to do a shout out to Jack, our new graduate data engineer. He's online. He said he can answer some of these questions now as well. So thank you for joining, Jack.
Awesome. Cool. What else do you want to talk about?
That is a good question.
We had a bunch of stuff here. What's that?
Do you have to get the reserved questions out?
We might have to. One of our good questions is not just what is data architecture, but what is good data architecture. And I think that's still something that we can't.
Not any old architecture.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, let's talk about that next time. Yeah. Where do you think data engineering is going over the next few years?
It's going to get bigger and bigger, I think. Well, more and more demand for it. I'm banking on it.
Why so?
Oh, well, we're building a team up at the moment, so I'm hoping that we're building a team for the right reasons. So, and I'm sure that is the case. But I think what's happened with this, the last year and a half of everyone readjusting to the new way that's the life in at the moment, is some companies have had a big kick now of focusing on optimization, using their data to be able to react quicker, having every CEO, I think, wants ML on his roadmap so he can make his company worth more, or AI is probably on there. So if there's a don't go and just do it without doing the rest of it first. Anyone listening, so you get all the foundation pace before you go to AI. Don't run before you can walk. So I think companies are investing in this area. If they don't, there won't be companies in the next 5 years' time.
We got kind of a related question here. Sorry, Matt, just want to butt in here.
Andrew,
data mesh, yay or nay? It's sort of related, I think, to some future aspects of more of a data architecture question, data engineering. But what are your thoughts on this one?
So I've heard it a little bit recently, and I've seen some people that seem to get really offended by it. Just reinventing things over time. Data lakes have a bad name now. Data lakes turn toxic, and all those other things. So now you need a new name to describe your data that is in different areas in different places. So your data lake plus your data warehouse. But data warehouse wasn't cool either. So if you want to call it someone else to get more people involved in it, go with data mesh. Is it anything new? Not really.
I think it's appropriate for some companies, but I think it's an exception. Like large companies that could benefit from, sort of a domain-driven, approach like this. But I don't think it's for everybody. And what I fear is that small companies are going to ape the data mesh concept, I think, unnecessarily. Yeah. So just like how companies used to spin up Hadoop back in the days when they had like a couple megabytes of data or something crazy. So it's like way overkill. Your thoughts on data mesh, yay or nay?
For me, I think one of the big problems, you need two things for data mesh. So you need a common data platform, which I've read the documents arguing for data mesh. They're actually really good, but they don't talk about what your common data platform is going to be or what the core service model is going to be. So you have to get that part right. I think a lot of your modern cloud data warehouses actually make this part fairly easy, but they're not necessarily pushing that.
But data mesh is also made, in response to the data warehouse too, right? So you don't want centralized data; you need distributed systems and so forth. I mean, you need a mesh, right? But I think you're back to the same problem, though.
Yeah, well, and the other part,
it's fractal in that nature.
It's fractal, and also it's the same problem that I think we've seen to some extent with agile methodologies and things. Agile methodologies are awesome, but only if they're implemented correctly. And this, to do data mesh right, you need this common platform, and then you need really good cross-functional teams. And some companies have done cross-functional teams extremely well. Many have not. And so, if you have too much top-down management happening, if you have poor communication, if you have silos with cross-functional teams, then the data mesh concept is not going to work very well.
The last thing I'm going to say on this one is, what problem is it solving for your company? If it's going to solve a problem that is worth you investing in it, getting a team that's doing it, buying into it, getting that community to believe they need it as well. If it's worth it, go and do it. So I agree with that one. It's a rebadging or rebranding old candy. Yeah.
What's up, Manoj? Manoj's calling in from Pakistan right now. What's up, man? We're gonna be on the he's gonna be on the Data Nerd Herd pretty soon too.
Cool. Look out for that.
Awesome guy. I think we're all in agreement. I think it remains to be seen. There's a lot of hype. I think I'm gonna have Zach come on and talk about it too, just to get her perspective on it.
We'll have to look what Gartner says on the hype curve of when we have to pay attention to it. So I think it'll be a good.
Yeah. Mark asks how much of data engineering will be automated, and I'll get to Manoj's question after this. How much of data engineering will be automated in the coming years? Thoughts?
I think the ingest part, the more and more smart contracts with APIs and more and more people moving to cloud Dynamics or any of these Salesforce. There is knowledge of how those data structures are, and you can probably ingest them. will you be able to work out how you need to actually structure that data for the end consumer client use case? No, you need business context. You're always going to need people for that. Any automation that happens, it's happening on the stuff that's boring, that we don't care about really. The fun part is putting that data together to make something that adds value. And if you can automate ingest, great. Everything else is I don't think so.
Yeah, and my take on that would be that a lot of things that were, like you said, the boring stuff was really hard a few years ago. The boring stuff has gotten easier. It's going to be easier to write code that processes data. It won't be fully automated. You'll still need some code to process the data. But people still have to make decisions about how the data is structured, how it's pre-processed, what high-performing or quality data actually means, like what your end consumer wants. Those kinds of things still require human intervention. You need humans to communicate with each other. You need humans to decide what their business goals actually are and then communicate those back to data engineering. Like all those things are still going to take a lot of effort and some code. It's just that already we're not writing MapReduce jobs to do big data like we were a couple of years ago. It's way easier now than it was, but there's still a lot of effort involved.
I mean, that's just a kind of a related question here. Do you think data engineering role will boil over to data scientists as well? The defining lines are blurring more and more with end-to-end solutions. What do you think about this?
I think it'll go both ways. You'll have data scientists that probably realize they're actually better data engineers and they're better at the prep stuff than actually the other piece, but then can also have that skill of being able to talk data science language to some of the other side. And I think you'll have the other way around, where the data engineers think the data scientists are cooler name. They're going to get more when they pay, so they're going to go that way. I think it's a route. So either way is a route into data. So data engineering could be a route into data scientists. Data scientists could be a route to engineering. Depends if you're more mathematical background. The lines in the sand are getting blurred or more blurred over time. I think that's another area that we'll do, definitely. Some more great questions. We should get him on the show.
He's good.
Yeah, to me, it's a matter of scale, going back to that question. I mean, I think if you have a large data organization, then it makes sense to have specialists. If you have a small data organization, then it's much easier to do end-to-end than it used to be. Say 10 years ago, you need specialists on big data, you need specialists on data science. And now, theoretically, someone can do both of those jobs if they don't have too much work to do.
Yeah. I actually think the more interesting conversation, I think, is data engineering versus machine learning engineering and how that's going to intersect.
Yeah.
So some people think I'm wrong on this. I might be, but I think that data engineering and machine learning engineering are ultimately going to be kind of two peas in a pod. I mean, think of the overlap of tooling and what you're trying to do operationally. It's not that much different, actually. Slightly different outcomes. You have to productionize models and deal with monitoring those, but monitoring is monitoring at the end of the day. There's definitely some nuance between application monitoring, model monitoring, and analytics monitoring. But at the end of the day, I think those distinctions are going to be more blurred because ML becomes more first class in every application. So as that becomes more first class, data engineering is going to start morphing with machine learning engineering because that's just how it's going to be. So
I've got an interesting one here. Maybe it's for another topic, another time. But so, what's the view on assistant data engineering? So using a product like Data Robot or other ones out there that take away some of the maths behind you, do you see that? Is that a problem? Do you think is it back down to that old GUI versus hand cranked approach? If you need someone that can understand the business, that can use a system data science tool, is that an approach they should take? What's your views on that?
Go for it, Matt.
Yeah, I think these tools are very useful. The way I see it, even really seasoned data scientists and machine learning engineers can make use of these tools as a first draft. So here's an example I've seen a couple of different times, actually. So a company decides, hey, we need image recognition to analyze a bunch of images. And they just start building it from scratch or TensorFlow or something. It's like, just use an API for that as your first draft. And then once you get into specialization, then you can start building out customization. But you're basically wasting a huge amount of time to do something that's just off the shelf as a first draft. And I feel like all these, AutoML tables and all these different tools that do a basic level of automation of machine learning processes, yeah, go for it, try it out. try it as a first draft. Make sure to be aware of your risks of models breaking and such, which is something that ML engineers and data scientists have a little more experience in. And then once you have a first draft going, delivering business value, the question is, okay, what do we do next? The next step is probably going to be something more custom with like trained people working on it.
Myself, I tend to agree. I mean, I've been working on AutoML for like a long time, on and off, right, since like the early 2010s. So I think structured data is kind of the harder one to solve, just because business data is in all shapes and forms and has no rhyme or reason to it typically. So that's, I think, still going to be hard with AutoML, frankly. Mark asks, to what level should a mid-level DE understand ML? I think you should understand the basics of machine learning for sure. You do it at your own handicap. So I'm off base on that, guys.
I think you maybe having someone that has aspirations to go and look at it, understand where it fits into the process. Actually knowing it and done it, we're bad enough. It's hard enough to find data engineers anyway. If we go and say you got to actually know ML to a certain level, you're back into that unicorn arena again. So, I think passion to learn it or going to, is it essential? I don't think so.
Yeah. And I would say like what you need is kind of the top level summary, like brown bag lunch level of learning. In other words, your ML engineers and data engineers should be communicating, and ideally they kind of give each other seminars to say, hey, here are some major top level concepts in ML engineering, or here are some major top level concepts and new trends in data engineering, so that you're aware of like the culture and the context. But as far as being really deep in ML engineering, I don't think so.
Who knows? So I come from an ML background, so kind of biased. So awesome. Well, it's coming up on time, guys. I think it's been a lot of fun, Chris. We'll have to have you back sometime. So any closing thoughts?
Well, I think the whole data architecture, architecture conversation is a good thing to address. I think data engineering, it's evolving, I think, as we said. So anyone's got that passion, they should look to do it. Anyone in the UK that has that, looking for a job, give us a shout. So.
Hit up Chris. Any closing thoughts, Matt?
It was just a really fun discussion. I mean, it's fun to get together like this. I think Joe and I tend to just mirror each other's thoughts after a while. Good to have some outside, some new blood in the mix here, and love to get more people cycling through. And hopefully we'll get to have another combo with you.
Yeah, let's talk architecture in a couple of weeks. So
that'd be good. That'd be good. I can't believe this hour went so quick, and so now I can actually go and open the beers. So that's all right.
Okay.
Anyway, it's been great. Yeah, it's been great chatting. It's good.
Likewise. All right, man.
Take care.
Till next time. Yeah, thanks for the audience. Subscribe to our channel. Talk to you guys later. Bye.